text-to-speech. Queb and the restaurant had gone silent. Crystal glasses glimmered under the soft chandelier light as every eye turned toward the corner booth. There sat Edward Langston, the billionaire CEO known for his temper and power, and beside him, his pregnant wife, Amelia, her trembling hands folded tightly in her lap. His voice was low but sharp, slicing through the quiet hum of the luxury dining room. "You embarrassed me again," he hissed, his tone dripping with control and contempt. Everyone saw the fear in her eyes, but no one moved. The waiters looked away, the manager pretended to check his phone, and the other guests lowered their heads. No one dared to interfere with Edward Langston, a man who could destroy careers with a single call. CTA1. Before we go deeper into this powerful story of courage and kindness, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe, where real stories inspire real change every day. The weight of silence. Amelia was 8 months pregnant, her glowing face now shadowed with exhaustion and pain. Once, she had dreamed of love and partnership, but life with Edward was a prison gilded in gold. Behind the mansion walls, she endured his anger, his arrogance, and his constant reminder that she was nothing without him. Yet she stayed, partly out of fear, partly out of hope that he might change when their child was born. That evening, she had begged him not to drink before the company's charity dinner. He ignored her plea. When she softly reminded him to take his heart medication, he snapped. And now, in public, his rage simmered just below the surface. He leaned closer, his words venomous but quiet enough to hide behind a smile. "If you ever embarrass me again, I'll make you regret it." The room felt suffocating. The Mota D hesitated near the entrance, torn between duty and fear. Amelia's eyes darted around, silently pleading for anyone to help. But the world had grown too used to staying silent before power. Then came the roar of vengeance outside, deep, guttural, and raw. Heads turned as 3 men in worn leather jackets entered, helmets under their arms, boots echoing on the marble floor. The logo on their jackets read Steel Guardians MC. They weren't there to start trouble, just passing through after a charity ride that had raised money for abused women and children. But fate, it seemed, had brought them here for a reason. The moment everything changed. As the bikers approached the bar, one of them, Mark, noticed the tension in the room. He saw Amelia's eyes, the silent plea, the tears she tried to hide. His gut clenched. He'd seen that look before. His sister had worn the same expression before she'd escaped her abusive ex. Mark turned to his crew Jocks and Cole and nodded subtly. Edward, sensing eyes on him, straightened and sneered. "What are you staring at?" He barked at Mark. Mark didn't flinch. "Just wondering why a man like you thinks power means making others small," he said calmly. The restaurant froze. No one had ever spoken to Edward Langston like that, not in public, not ever. Edward rose from his chair, puffed with arrogance. "You have no idea who you're talking to," he growled. Mark stepped forward, his voice steady. "I don't need to. I just know what it looks like when someone's trapped, and I don't stand by for that." The tension was electric. Edward's face reddened, but when he saw Jocks and Cole standing beside Mark, strong, unshaken, and quietly defiant, he hesitated. For the first time, the billionaire's confidence cracked. The room sensed it. The waiters stepped closer. The manager found his voice. "Sir, I think it's time for you to leave." The power of courage. Amelia's heart pounded as she looked at the bikers. Strangers who'd done what no one else had dared to. She rose shakily, clutching her belly. Edward started to speak, but Mark's calm gaze silenced him. "She's leaving with us," he said firmly, "and if you've got any sense left, you'll let her." The words hung in the air like thunder. For a moment, Edward seemed ready to explode, but then, surrounded by witnesses, his pride dissolved into cold fury. He turned his back and stormed out, his footsteps echoing through the stunned silence. Mark turned gently to Amelia. "You're safe now, ma'am. Let's get you somewhere warm." Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "You don't even know me." He smiled softly. "We don't need to. Kindness doesn't need permission." The 3 bikers walked her outside, their jackets glistening under the streetlights. The night air felt alive with change. They called a women's shelter they worked with, one that specialized in helping mothers and children escape controlling relationships. Amelia hesitated, but Mark assured her, "You're not weak for leaving. You're strong for choosing to live." For the first time in years, Amelia smiled through her tears. A new dawn. Weeks passed. Edward's empire began to crumble as his public image fractured. Security footage from that night leaked online, not of violence, but of a powerful man being challenged by three strangers who stood for decency. The internet called them the Biker Angels. Donations poured into their charity, and Amelia, under the shelter's protection, gave birth to a healthy baby boy she named Hope. She later learned that Edward had been arrested for financial crimes uncovered during the scandal that followed. Karma, it seemed, had its own way of balancing the scales. Amelia began volunteering at the shelter that had saved her. Her gentle voice and story of survival inspired dozens of other women to take their first brave steps toward freedom. One afternoon, as she helped a young mother fill out her forms, she looked up and saw three familiar leather jackets at the door. Mark, Jocks, and Cole stood there, smiling warmly. Mark handed her a small box. Inside was a silver bracelet engraved with the words, "Courage is louder than fear." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "You saved my life," she whispered. Mark shook his head. "You saved your own. We just reminded you that you could." The message before long, Amelia began speaking publicly about her journey, not with bitterness, but with hope. She spoke about how kindness from strangers can change everything, how courage begins with one person choosing not to look away. CTA2. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe, because every act of courage, every story of compassion deserves to be heard and shared. Together, we can make kindness louder than fear. Final scene. 1 year later. On a warm spring afternoon, a group of bikers rode past a community center. On the front lawn, Amelia played with her son, little Hope. She looked up, waved at the familiar roar of the bikes, and smiled. In that moment, she wasn't a victim. She was a survivor, and behind her smile lay a truth the world too often forgets. Sometimes, the smallest acts of courage, a stranger speaking up, a hand extended, a kind heart unafraid, can rewrite a life forever. And as the bikers disappeared into the horizon, their engines fading into the wind, Amelia whispered softly to her son, "Kindness always wins." Here.